The morning sun had barely risen when Thomas Allen stepped out of his downtown apartment building. He checked his watch and frowned. His driver had texted him just 30 minutes ago that he was sick with the flu, leaving Thomas without his usual ride to work. As the CEO of Rivera Technologies, he rarely had to think about how he got from place to place. That was what assistants and drivers were for. But today was different. Thomas had an important board meeting at 9 a.m., and calling for a replacement driver would take too long. After a quick search on his phone, he realized his fastest option was the city bus, something he hadn't used since college. Number 47 to downtown, he muttered to himself, walking briskly to the nearest stop. The autumn air was crisp, and Thomas pulled his expensive coat tighter around himself. He felt oddly exposed without the protective bubble of his luxury car. When the bus arrived, Thomas paid his fare with a tap of his credit card, nodding politely to the driver. He found a seat near the front, his briefcase balanced on his knees. The bus was about half full, mostly people in work clothes heading to early shifts. Thomas felt out of place in his tailored suit, but nobody seemed to pay him much attention. 3 stops later, a young black woman hurried onto the bus, holding the hand of a small girl who looked about 6 years old. The woman wore a light blue nursing aide uniform under her worn jacket. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun, but a few strands had escaped, suggesting she'd rushed to get ready. "Good morning," she said to the driver with a warm smile that didn't quite hide the tiredness in her eyes. She began searching through her purse, her movements becoming increasingly frantic as the seconds ticked by. The little girl stood patiently beside her, clutching a small backpack shaped like a ladybug. "I'm so sorry," the woman said, her voice tight with stress. "I can't find my bus pass." "I know I put it in here last night," the driver sighed. It wasn't an angry sound, more like the sigh of someone who'd seen this scene play out many times before. "Can't let you ride without paying, ma'am. Rules are rules. I understand, but we need to get to her school and then I have to be at work by 7. Please, I promise I'll pay double tomorrow." The driver shook his head. "I'd lose my job. You'll have to wait for the next bus and find your pass or the money." The woman bit her lip, looking down at the little girl whose big brown eyes were now filled with worry. "Will we be late, Mommy?" the child asked in a small voice. Thomas watched this scene unfold, feeling an unexpected twist in his chest. Without really thinking about it, he stood up. "I'll pay for them," he said, moving toward the front of the bus. The woman turned, startled by his voice. Up close, Thomas could see the pride in her eyes, mixed with embarrassment and relief. "That's very kind. But you don't have to—" "It's no trouble," Thomas said, already tapping his card again on the payment reader. "Really?" The driver nodded and gestured for them to move along. The woman hesitated for just a moment before gently guiding her daughter toward a pair of empty seats. "Thank you," she said to Thomas as they passed him. Her voice was soft but dignified. Thomas nodded and returned to his seat, suddenly very aware of the cost of his watch, which could probably pay for a year's worth of bus fares. The little girl settled by the window, her face brightening as she looked out at the city waking up. Her mother sat beside her, still searching through her purse with worried movements. "Found it," she whispered after a minute, pulling out a bus pass from a side pocket. She closed her eyes briefly, exhaling with relief before tucking it safely into her uniform pocket. Thomas pretended to look at his phone, but he was watching them from the corner of his eye. There was something about the woman, a quiet strength in the way she carried herself despite what was clearly a challenging morning. "Drink your juice, Lily," the mother said, helping her daughter open a small box of apple juice. "And remember what we practiced for your spelling test today?" The girl nodded eagerly. "I know all my words. Even beautiful and because, those are the hard ones. That's my smart girl." The mother smiled, adjusting the collar of her daughter's jacket. "And after school, Miss Patricia will pick you up, okay? Mommy has to work late tonight." Lily's face fell a little. "Again? But you promised to read the next chapter of our book." "I know, baby. I'm sorry. The nursing home is short-staffed, and Mrs. Wilson needs extra care these days. But tomorrow is Saturday, and I have the whole morning off. We can read 2 chapters then." Lily seemed to accept this with the resilience of a child used to changing plans. "Can we make pancakes too?" "Absolutely. With blueberries, just how you like them." Thomas felt like he was eavesdropping on a private moment, but something kept him listening. In his world of business deals and corporate strategies, there was rarely such simple honesty. The bus stopped again, and more passengers got on. A heavy-set older woman with grocery bags took the seat next to Thomas, giving him a brief nod before settling in. The bus was getting crowded now, filled with the morning sounds of people starting their day. Muffled conversations, the rustle of newspapers, the occasional ping of a phone message. 15 minutes later, the bus pulled up to an elementary school. Several children stood up to exit, Lily among them. "Be good today," her mother said, giving her a quick hug. "Learn something amazing to tell me tonight." "I will." "Love you, Mommy." Lily's small arms wrapped around her mother's neck before she joined the line of children, exiting the bus. The woman watched through the window as her daughter joined a stream of children walking toward the school entrance. Only when Lily was safely inside did she relax back into her seat, checking her watch with a small frown. Thomas realized they were nearing the business district where his office was located. He gathered his briefcase, preparing to exit at the next stop. As he stood, he found himself directly across from the woman. Their eyes met briefly. "Thanks again for your help," she said. Not everyone would do that for strangers. Thomas felt unexpectedly self-conscious. "It was nothing. Have a good day." "I'm Denise," she offered unexpectedly. "Denise Wilson." "Thomas Allen," he replied automatically, then added, "I hope you find your bus pass for the trip home." She patted her pocket with a small smile. "Already found it. It was hiding in the wrong pocket. Just one of those mornings, you know." Thomas nodded. Though his mornings rarely involved bus passes or school drop-offs, his biggest morning challenge was usually choosing which tie to wear. The bus slowed to his stop and Thomas moved toward the exit. As he stepped off, he glanced back and saw Denise looking down at her phone, her brow furrowed in concentration, probably checking the time or messages. In that unguarded moment, the worry on her face was clear to see. Walking the 2 blocks to his office building, Thomas found himself thinking about Denise and her daughter. He tried to imagine what her day would be like. Caring for elderly patients, perhaps worrying about picking up her daughter, making ends meet. It was a life far removed from his executive suite with its comfortable leather chairs and personal assistant bringing him coffee just the way he liked it. By the time Thomas reached the revolving doors of the Rivera Technologies building, he had almost pushed the bus encounter from his mind. Almost, but not quite. Something about Denise's dignity and the loving way she spoke to her daughter had struck a chord with him. "Good morning, Mr. Allen." The security guard greeted him with surprise. "Car trouble today?" "Something like that, Paul," Thomas replied, heading for the elevator. As he rode up to the executive floor, Thomas checked his messages and mentally prepared for the board meeting. The familiar weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders. Quarterly reports, profit margins, market expansion plans. But as the elevator doors opened to his floor, Thomas found himself wondering if Denise had made it to work on time, and whether little Lily would do well on her spelling test. It was strange how a brief encounter with strangers could linger in his thoughts like this. Thomas had no way of knowing then that this chance meeting, this small act of kindness, on a city bus would be the beginning of a journey that would change both their lives in ways neither could imagine. His assistant met him at the elevator with a concerned look. "Mr. Allen, is everything all right? We weren't expecting you to arrive by bus." Thomas smiled, an idea beginning to form in his mind. "Everything's fine. Actually, better than fine. I think I just had an important reminder about the real world outside these office walls." 2 days had passed since Thomas's unexpected bus ride. His car service was back to normal, but something kept nagging at him. During a morning meeting, he found himself staring out the window at the bus stop across the street, watching people come and go. "Thomas, your thoughts on the proposal?" His finance director's voice snapped him back to attention. "Sorry, James, could you repeat the question?" Thomas straightened in his chair, aware of the curious looks from his executive team. Later that afternoon, Thomas canceled his car service without explaining why. His assistant, Grace, raised her eyebrows but said nothing as he grabbed his coat and headed for the elevator. The bus stop was crowded with afternoon commuters. Thomas checked the schedule on his phone, confirming that the number 47 bus would arrive in 3 minutes. He wasn't entirely sure why he was doing this. The chances of seeing Denise again were slim. The bus pulled up right on time and Thomas boarded, paying his fare with the transit card he'd bought that morning. He took the same seat he'd occupied 2 days ago and looked around. No sign of Denise. 4 stops later, as the bus pulled up to the medical district, Thomas caught a glimpse of a familiar blue uniform. Denise stepped onto the bus alone this time. She looked even more tired than before, but there was a quiet determination in her walk. She tapped her bus pass confidently and turned to find a seat. Their eyes met, and Thomas saw the flash of recognition. Denise hesitated, then made her way toward him. "The bus fare guy," she said with a tired smile, gesturing to the empty seat beside him. "Mind if I sit?" "Please do," Thomas replied, moving his briefcase to make room. "No school pickup today?" Denise settled beside him with a sigh. "My daughter has after-school art club on Thursdays. My neighbor will pick her up later." She studied him curiously. "You're a long way from the business district," Thomas smiled. "I had a meeting near the hospital." The lie came easily, though he wasn't sure why he felt the need to make one. Denise nodded, not pressing further. She leaned back against the seat, closing her eyes briefly. 10 hours on my feet. The nursing home is short-staffed, as usual." "That sounds challenging," Thomas said, realizing how inadequate his words were. "You work as a nurse?" "Nursing aide," she corrected. "For now. I'm taking night classes to become an RN. 2 more years to go." Thomas watched as she took a small notebook from her bag and flipped through pages dense with notes. "Studying between shifts?" "Every chance I get. I have an exam tomorrow night." She tapped the page. "The human circulatory system won't memorize itself. Your daughter, Lily, right? She must be proud of you." Surprise flickered across Denise's face. "You remembered her name?" Thomas hadn't realized that he had. She seemed sweet. "And excited about a spelling test?" Denise's expression softened. "She got a perfect score on that test. Put it right on the fridge when we got home." She paused, studying him. "You don't seem like the type who usually rides the bus." "I don't," Thomas admitted. "My driver was sick that day." "Your driver?" Denise raised an eyebrow. "I figured you were some kind of businessman, but that's next level." "What do you do exactly?" "I run a technology company. Rivera Technologies." Denise's eyes widened slightly. "Wait, you're not just some manager, you're the boss?" Thomas nodded, suddenly self-conscious about the vast difference in their circumstances. "Well, Mr. Big Shot CEO, you picked a good day to slum it on public transport. I'd have walked in the rain with Lily if we'd missed that bus." There was no bitterness in her tone, just a matter-of-fact acknowledgement of her reality. Thomas found himself respecting her directness. "What kind of technology does your company make?" she asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. "Mostly software for businesses. Database management, security systems, that sort of thing." Denise looked thoughtful. "You know what system desperately needs an upgrade?" "Healthcare. Especially at places like where I work." "How so?" "Everything's a mess. We waste so much time on paperwork that could be spent with patients. The medication tracking system crashes weekly. Scheduling is a nightmare." She warmed to the topic, her fatigue seemingly forgotten. "And don't get me started on how hard it is to coordinate between facilities when a patient transfers." Thomas found himself listening with genuine interest. "These are exactly the kinds of problems our systems help solve." "Really?" "Because I've had this idea." Denise stopped suddenly, laughing. "Listen to me bending the ear of a CEO about my little ideas. You probably have people lining up to pitch you stuff." "Actually, I'd like to hear it," Thomas said, surprised by his own interest. The bus stopped, and several passengers got on. Denise glanced out the window. "This is my transfer point. I need to catch the crosstown bus to get to class." Thomas felt an unexpected disappointment. Another time, perhaps. Denise stood, adjusting her bag on her shoulder. "Sure, if our bus schedules align again." She smiled, but there was a hint of skepticism in her voice. Thomas made a quick decision. He pulled out a business card and handed it to her. "If you ever want to share that idea, my email is on there." "I mean it." Denise looked at the card, running her thumb over the embossed logo. "Thomas Allen, Chief Executive Officer," she read aloud. She tucked the card carefully into her notebook. "Maybe I will. Thanks for the chat, Thomas." She made her way to the exit, and Thomas watched her walk toward the bus shelter to wait for her connection. There was something captivating about her, not just her physical presence, but the way she carried herself with such dignity, despite her obvious exhaustion. For the first time in years, Thomas felt a connection to someone outside his usual social circle. Someone who saw the world differently than he did. The next morning, Thomas surprised his executive team by calling an impromptu meeting about their healthcare division. "We've been approaching hospital systems all wrong," he said, pacing in front of the whiteboard. "We need to focus on long-term care facilities, nursing homes, rehab centers. Their systems are outdated and the staff is drowning in inefficiency." His innovation director looked surprised. "That's not a market we've explored much." "What sparked this interest?" Thomas hesitated. "Let's just say I got some insider perspective." Over the next 2 weeks, Thomas found himself taking the bus more often, though he didn't run into Denise again. His team thought he was simply trying to be more environmentally conscious, and he didn't correct them. The truth was more complicated. Those bus rides reminded him of a world outside his executive bubble, a world where people worried about bus fares and worked double shifts. One Tuesday morning, Thomas's assistant knocked on his office door. "There's an email you might want to see," Grace said. "It's from someone named Denise Wilson. She said you asked her to share some ideas about healthcare systems." Thomas sat up straighter. "Yes, I did. Forward it to me right away, please." Alone in his office, Thomas opened Denise's email with unexpected eagerness. It was long and detailed, outlining a vision for a patient care management system designed from the perspective of nursing aides and other frontline staff. Her insights were practical, focused on real problems he'd never considered. At the end, she'd written, "I'm not sure if this is what you were looking for, but these changes would make a real difference for people like me and, more importantly, for our patients. Thanks for listening on the bus and now." Thomas read the email twice, then reached for his phone. This wasn't just a courtesy follow-up. Denise had genuine insights that could reshape their healthcare products. His finger hovered over the reply button. Would she think he was crazy if he invited her to come present these ideas to his development team? Probably, but something told him Denise Wilson was exactly the voice his company needed to hear. "Grace," he called to his assistant, "please clear my schedule for lunch next Thursday, and find out the address of Sunset Pines Nursing Home. I think I need to see firsthand what our healthcare clients are dealing with." As he pressed send on his reply to Denise, Thomas felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in years. Whatever came next would take both of them far beyond that chance meeting on the number 47 bus. Denise stood at the bus stop, checking her reflection in her phone screen one last time. She had splurged on a new blouse, navy blue with small white dots to wear with her only pair of dress pants. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she'd even put on lipstick, something she rarely bothered with for her nursing shifts. "You look nice, Mommy," Lily had said that morning, watching her get ready with curious eyes. "Are you going to be a doctor today?" The memory made Denise smile despite her nerves. She wasn't going to be a doctor, but she was about to do something equally intimidating: present her ideas to a room full of technology executives. The gleaming Rivera Technologies building loomed ahead as Denise approached. 50 stories of steel and glass that seemed to touch the clouds. People in expensive suits streamed through the revolving doors, all looking like they belonged there. Denise took a deep breath and joined them. "I'm here to see Thomas Allen," she told the security guard, trying to keep her voice steady. "I have an appointment." The guard checked his computer. "Denise Wilson? You'll need a visitor badge." He snapped her photo and handed her a plastic card. "Someone will escort you to the 48th floor." The elevator ride was silent and awkward. Denise stood beside a young man in a tailored suit who'd been sent to escort her. He'd introduced himself as Ryan, one of Thomas's assistants, but hadn't said much else. She could feel him glancing at her worn laptop bag and sensible shoes. When the elevator doors opened on the 48th floor, Denise's breath caught. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the entire city. The reception area gleamed with polished marble and sleek furniture that probably cost more than her yearly rent. "This way, please," Ryan said, leading her down a hallway lined with modern art. He stopped at a glass-walled conference room where several people sat around a long table. Thomas was at the head, looking up from his laptop as they entered. "Denise," he said, standing and walking over to greet her. "Thank you for coming." His smile seemed genuine, which calmed her slightly. "Thanks for the invitation," she replied, hoping her voice didn't betray her nerves. "Though I'm still not sure why the CEO of a major company wants to hear ideas from a nursing aide." Thomas gestured toward the table. "Because those ideas were more insightful than most of what I hear from highly paid consultants." He turned to the group. "Everyone, this is Denise Wilson. She has a unique perspective on healthcare systems that I think we need to hear." 8 pairs of eyes turned to study her. Denise recognized the expressions, polite but skeptical. She'd seen that look many times before, usually from doctors when she tried to suggest something about a patient's care. Thomas introduced each person around the table. Executives with impressive titles, software developers with multiple degrees, marketing specialists who looked like they'd stepped out of glossy magazines. Denise felt increasingly out of place, but something in Thomas's encouraging nod gave her courage. I've asked Denise to share her thoughts on how our healthcare management systems could better serve long-term care facilities, Thomas explained, taking his seat. Denise, the floor is yours. Denise connected her laptop to the projection system with Ryan's help. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened her presentation, simple slides she'd created between shifts and after Lily went to bed. I'm not a technology expert, she began, her voice quiet at first. I'm a nursing aide at Sunset Pines Nursing Home. I work with elderly patients, many with dementia or complex medical needs. And every day I see how broken our systems are. She clicked to her first slide, a photo of the ancient computer at the nursing station. This is what we use to track medications, appointments, and care plans for 63 residents. It crashes at least twice a day. As she continued through her presentation, Denise's voice grew stronger. She showed photos of the paper charts they used when the computer system failed. She explained how information got lost during shift changes, and how family requests fell through the cracks. Mrs. Chen's son asked 3 times to be notified when his mother's medication changed, but our system doesn't flag those requests. By the time he found out, she'd had a bad reaction to the new medicine. Denise noticed a few executives exchanging glances, but she pressed on. She'd lived this reality every day for 4 years. They needed to hear it. What we need is a system designed for people like me, the ones who actually use it all day. Every day. She clicked to a rough mock-up she'd created. Something like this. Simple screens, clear alerts, and a way to track what really matters. Not just medications, but personal preferences, family contacts, and quality of life measures. She showed more mock-ups, explaining her vision for a system that would actually help patients and caregivers, rather than just satisfy regulatory requirements. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Denise's heart pounded in her chest. Had she overstepped? Made a fool of herself? Then the head of software development, a woman named Christine, leaned forward. Your mock-ups are rough, but the workflow makes more sense than what we've been developing. How did you come up with this interface? I just designed what I wish we had, Denise replied honestly. Something that wouldn't require 3 clicks to document a blood pressure reading when I'm already running behind on my rounds. Questions came from around the table then. Specific, technical questions that Denise answered as best she could, drawing on her daily experience. Some she couldn't answer, and she said so plainly. I don't know how you'd code that, but I know what would make our jobs easier. Thomas watched the exchange with growing interest. He'd suspected Denise had valuable insights, but he hadn't expected this level of detail or the way his team was responding to her. After nearly an hour, Thomas stood up. Thank you, Denise. This has been incredibly valuable. He turned to his team. I'd like everyone to take some time to think about what we've heard today. Let's reconvene tomorrow to discuss how we might incorporate these insights. The executives filed out, several nodding respectfully to Denise as they passed. When the room was empty except for Thomas and Denise, she let out a long breath. That was terrifying, she admitted. I kept waiting for someone to laugh or tell me I was being naive. Thomas shook his head. You were brilliant. You showed them problems they never knew existed, from a perspective they've never considered. Denise began packing up her laptop. Well, thank you for listening. I hope some of it helps. Actually, Thomas said, I was hoping you might be willing to do more than just share your ideas. He sat down across from her. Would you consider coming on as a consultant? We could use your expertise as we redesign our healthcare systems. Denise stared at him. A consultant? Me? I don't have a business degree or a technology background. You have something more valuable, real-world experience and clear vision. Thomas pushed a folder across the table. This is a consulting proposal. Part-time hours that you could work around your current job and classes. The pay would be... Denise opened the folder and her eyes widened at the figure. This can't be right. It's standard for specialized consulting, Thomas said. And believe me, your knowledge is specialized and valuable. Denise closed the folder, her mind racing. I need to think about this. It would mean rearranging a lot of things. My shifts, my classes, childcare for Lily. Take all the time you need, Thomas said. The offer stands. On the bus ride home, Denise's thoughts tumbled over each other. The consulting fee would cover 6 months of rent. She could cut back on extra shifts, have more time for her studies and for Lily. But what if she failed? What if they realized she was just a nursing aide playing at being a business consultant? When she picked up Lily from her neighbor's apartment, her daughter immediately sensed something had changed. "Did you get to be a doctor today?" Lily asked, taking her mother's hand as they walked to their apartment. Denise smiled. "No, honey. But I might have gotten a chance to help make things better for a lot of people." That night, after Lily was asleep, Denise called her sister. "They want to pay me to tell them how to fix their computers," she explained, still not quite believing it herself. "Of course they do," her sister replied. "You've been complaining about those systems for years. About time somebody listened." 2 days later, Denise accepted Thomas's offer. The following Monday, she found herself back at Rivera Technologies with a new badge. Not a visitor pass, but an official consultant ID. Meanwhile, Thomas faced questions from his board of directors. A nursing aide with no technology background? The chairman asked during their monthly meeting.
"That's who you've brought in to consult on our multi-million-dollar healthcare division?"
Thomas had anticipated the pushback. Denise Wilson has 4 years of hands-on experience with exactly the problems our systems need to solve. She sees what our regular consultants miss because she lives it every day. "And the fact that you met her on a bus has nothing to do with this decision?" another board member asked pointedly. Thomas felt a flash of irritation. "The fact that I met her on a bus is exactly the point. When was the last time any of us actually rode public transportation or worked a double shift at a nursing home? We live in a bubble, gentlemen, and it's affecting our products." He passed around copies of Denise's presentation. "Look at these mock-ups. They're not technically sophisticated, but they show an understanding of workflow that none of our engineers captured. That's the perspective we've been missing." The board remained skeptical, but Thomas stood firm. This wasn't just about Denise anymore. It was about recognizing his own disconnection from the real world. A world where bus fares mattered and single mothers worked multiple jobs to get ahead. That evening, as Thomas's driver took him home, he gazed out at the city streets with new eyes. For years, he'd measured success by profit margins and market share, but now he found himself wondering about impact, real impact on everyday lives. His phone buzzed with a text from Denise. "First day complete. Your team asked tough questions, but I think they're starting to listen. Thank you for this opportunity." Thomas smiled as he typed his reply. What had begun as a simple act of kindness was evolving into something neither of them could have predicted. And somewhere deep inside, he knew they were just getting started. 3 weeks into her consulting role, Denise sat in a development meeting that wasn't going well. The lead programmer, a man named Keith, was questioning every suggestion she made. "That's not how enterprise software works," he said, cutting her off mid-sentence. "Users want powerful features, not simplified interfaces." Denise took a deep breath before responding. "The nurses and aides I work with don't have time to click through 5 screens to document a temperature reading. They'll skip steps or enter data later from memory, which leads to errors." "With all due respect," Keith said in a tone that suggested none was intended, "you don't have a background in UI design or user experience. We've been building healthcare systems for 15 years. And have you ever spent a day using one of your systems in an actual nursing home?" Denise asked. The silence that followed answered her question. After the meeting, Christine, the head of software development, caught up with Denise in the hallway. "Don't let Keith get to you," she said. "He treats everyone like that at first." "Is it because I'm a nursing aide? Or because I'm black?" Denise asked bluntly. "Chris." Tyne looked startled by her directness. "I'd like to say neither, but probably both, if I'm being honest. Plus you're a woman in tech, which is its own challenge." She sighed. "Keith's brilliant but stuck in his ways. Your ideas threaten everything he's built." "I'm not here to threaten anyone," Denise said. "I just want to make something that actually works for the people who use it." "I know," Christine replied. "And that's exactly why Thomas brought you in. Give it time." Later that day, Denise knocked on Thomas's office door. His assistant had said he was free, but she still felt awkward interrupting him. "Come in," he called. Thomas sat behind his massive desk, his suit jacket hanging on a chair nearby. shirt sleeves rolled up as he studied something on his computer. He looked up and smiled when he saw Denise. "Perfect timing," he said. "I was just looking at the mock-ups your team sent over." "That's actually why I'm here," Denise said, taking a seat across from him. "I'm not sure this is working out." Thomas's smile faded. "What happened?" "Nothing specific, just I don't think some of your team believes a nursing aide has anything valuable to contribute. I spend most meetings being talked over or having my ideas dismissed." Thomas leaned back in his chair. "Who specifically?" "It doesn't matter," Denise said, not wanting to name names. "The point is, maybe this was a mistake. I have plenty to do with my regular job and my classes. I don't need to fight battles here too." "I understand," Thomas said quietly, "and if you want to leave, I won't stop you. But before you decide, I'd like you to know that your work has already made a difference." He turned his computer screen toward her. On it was a side-by-side comparison of their old interface and the new one inspired by her suggestions. "Testing shows a 40% reduction in documentation time with your design. That's hours of work saved for people like you. Hours they can spend with patients instead of computers." Denise studied the screen. The new interface was cleaner, more intuitive. It looked like something she and her colleagues would actually want to use. "We've never had this perspective before," Thomas continued. "We've always designed from the top down, what hospital administrators and doctors want. You're showing us what frontline workers need." Denise felt torn. She believed in the project, but the daily friction was wearing her down. "I'll think about it," she finally said. That night, Denise was helping Lily with her homework when her daughter started complaining of a stomachache. Within an hour, Lily was curled up in pain, her forehead burning with fever. "We need to go to the hospital," Denise said, already reaching for her phone to call her neighbor for a ride. The emergency room was packed. Denise held Lily in her lap, whispering reassurances as they waited to be seen. 3 hours later, a doctor finally examined her, ordering blood tests and an ultrasound. "Possible appendicitis," the doctor told Denise. "We'll need to keep her for observation and possibly surgery." Denise felt her world narrowing to a pinpoint of fear. As they moved Lily to a children's ward, Denise called her sister and 2 close friends from church. She wouldn't leave Lily's side, which meant missing work and her consulting hours. By morning, Lily's condition had worsened. The doctors scheduled emergency surgery, explaining the procedure to Denise with a calm efficiency that did little to ease her fear. "We'll take good care of her," the surgeon promised. As they wheeled Lily to the operating room, Denise felt more alone than she had in years. She stepped into the hallway to call her supervisor at the nursing home, explaining her absence. Then, almost as an afterthought, she sent a brief email to Thomas's assistant, saying she had a family emergency and wouldn't be able to attend meetings for a few days. She was sitting in the surgical waiting area, head bowed in prayer, when she heard someone call her name. Looking up, she was stunned to see Thomas walking toward her, concern etched on his face. "Thomas, what are you doing here? Your email mentioned Children's Hospital. I thought you might need support." He gestured to the bag he carried. "I brought some food and coffee. Hospital cafeterias are terrible." Denise was too exhausted to hide her emotions. Tears welled in her eyes at this unexpected kindness. "Lily's in surgery," she explained, voice breaking. "Appendicitis. They said it ruptured." Thomas sat beside her, his presence surprisingly comforting. "I'm so sorry. Can I call anyone for you?" "My sister's on her way, and my church friends are coming after work." Denise managed a weak smile. "We have a good support system." They sat in silence for a while, Thomas's presence giving Denise a moment to simply breathe. He didn't offer empty reassurances, which she appreciated. Eventually, Denise's sister arrived, followed by 3 women from her church. They formed a protective circle around Denise, bringing food, prayer, and practical help. Thomas watched their interactions with interest, noticing how they organized themselves without discussion. One handling calls to other friends, another making sure Denise ate, a third talking to the nurses about Lily's aftercare needs. "Your Thomas can wait in the room with Lily while we take you home to shower," one of the women said, looking at Thomas expectantly. "Oh, he's not my—" Denise began. "I'm happy to stay," Thomas interrupted, surprising himself, if that would help. And so Thomas found himself sitting beside a sleeping 7-year-old's hospital bed, watching nurses come and go. He noticed how they documented everything on a clunky computer system, muttering in frustration when the program froze or crashed. One nurse, seeing his interest, commented, "Systems always going down. Makes our jobs twice as hard." Thomas thought about Denise's designs back at the office. "What would make it better?" he asked. The nurse looked surprised that he cared. "Something that works, for starters. Something designed by people who understand what we actually do all day." When Denise returned, looking somewhat refreshed, she found Thomas deep in conversation with Lily's nurse about workflow and documentation challenges. "Even here," she said, with a tired smile, "you're doing market research in a hospital room." "Professional hazard," Thomas admitted. "But it confirms everything you've been telling us." Later, as they both watched Lily sleeping peacefully after a successful surgery, Thomas said quietly, "You have an amazing community." "They're my lifeline," Denise replied. "Single motherhood would be impossible without them." Thomas nodded, thinking about his own life. Successful by conventional standards, but oddly isolated. "I should get going," he said eventually. "Will you be all right?" "We'll be fine," Denise assured him. "Thank you for coming. It means a lot." Thomas hesitated at the door. "About your concerns at work, I'll handle it. Take all the time you need with Lily, and when you come back, things will be different. I promise." True to his word, Thomas called an all-hands meeting the next day for everyone involved in the healthcare project. "I visited Children's Hospital yesterday," he began, "not as a CEO, but as a friend of someone whose child was sick. And what I saw confirmed everything Denise has been telling us. Our healthcare systems are failing the people who use them every day." He described what he'd observed: frustrated nurses, lost information, systems crashing at critical moments. "Denise Wilson isn't just a consultant giving us theoretical advice," he continued. "She's showing us reality. And some of you have been dismissing that reality because she doesn't have the right credentials or background." He looked directly at Keith and a few other senior developers who had been most resistant. "That stops today. From now on, Denise's input carries the same weight as any executive on this project. If that's a problem for anyone, you can transfer to another division." The room was silent. Thomas rarely used his authority this directly. "One more thing," he added. "Next week, I'm instituting a new policy. Every developer on this project will spend one day shadowing healthcare workers who use our systems. We need to see what they see, face what they face." As the meeting dispersed, Christine approached Thomas. "That was unexpected," she said. The old Thomas would have diplomatically smoothed things over without taking sides. Thomas considered this. "The old Thomas didn't ride buses or sit in hospital rooms," he replied. "Maybe it's time for an upgrade." 2 days later, Lily was released from the hospital. As Denise helped her daughter settle at home, she received a text from Thomas. "When you're ready to come back, we're ready to listen. Really listen. Take all the time you need." Denise smiled, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. What had begun as a chance encounter had become something neither of them could have anticipated. A partnership that was changing not just a company's products, but its very culture. And perhaps in the process, changing them both as well. 1 year later, Denise stood in front of a small crowd gathered in the lobby of Sunset Pines Nursing Home. A banner hung overhead, Health Connect launch day. Beside her, Thomas adjusted his tie, looking almost as nervous as she felt. "Ready?" he asked quietly. Denise nodded, glancing around at the familiar faces, her fellow nursing aides, the administrative staff, and even a few residents in wheelchairs, who had come to see what all the excitement was about. "I can't believe we're actually here," she whispered. The nursing home director stepped forward to introduce them. "Today marks a new chapter for Sunset Pines. Thanks to our own Denise Wilson and the team at Rivera Technologies, we're launching a care management system that was designed specifically for facilities like ours." Applause filled the lobby as Denise stepped up to the microphone. 1 year ago, she would have been terrified to speak in front of a crowd. Now she felt only a gentle flutter of nerves. "When I started working here 4 years ago, I never imagined I'd be standing here today," she began. "I was just trying to do my job well and take care of our residents. But every day I saw how our outdated systems made that job harder than it needed to be." She gestured to the new tablet computers stacked on a nearby table. Health Connect was born from those daily frustrations. It was created by listening to the people who do this work every day. Not just doctors and administrators, but nursing aides, kitchen staff, maintenance workers, and even family members. As Denise continued her speech, Thomas watched her with undisguised pride. The nervous nursing aide who had once struggled to speak up in meetings was now confidently explaining complex technology to a room full of people. And she had earned every bit of that confidence. After the presentation, as staff members experimented with the new tablets, Thomas pulled Denise aside. "You know what today is, don't you?" he asked. Denise looked puzzled. "It's exactly 1 year since I paid your bus fare," Thomas said with a smile. "I looked it up in my calendar." "You're kidding." Denise shook her head in amazement. 1 year ago, I couldn't find my bus pass, and today we're launching a system that might change healthcare for thousands of people. Life is strange. Life is opportunity, Thomas corrected gently. And you seized yours. Later that afternoon, they sat in Thomas's car. He still had a driver most days, though he made a point of riding the bus at least once a week to stay grounded. "The board meeting went well?" Denise asked. Thomas nodded. "Better than well. Health Connect has already been adopted by 12 facilities, with 20 more in the pipeline. The board has approved full funding for the healthcare division, and they want to expand into home healthcare next." "That's fantastic," Denise said. "And the scholarship program?" "Approved unanimously." Thomas looked pleased. 10 full scholarships per year for nursing aides who want to pursue advanced degrees, with guaranteed flexible employment while they study. Denise felt a wave of emotion. That program had been her idea, a way to create pathways for others like herself, who had the ambition but lacked the financial resources, to advance their education. "And they agreed to name it after Mrs. Wilson?" Thomas added, referring to the elderly patient whose care had inspired many of Denise's innovations. "She would have loved that," Denise said softly. Mrs. Wilson had passed away 3 months earlier, but her influence lived on in the system designed to provide better care for people like her. The car pulled up in front of Lily's school. Now 8 years old, she was thriving in 3rd grade and had recently tested into the gifted program. As they waited, Thomas asked the question that had been on his mind all day. "Have you thought more about the job offer?" Denise sighed. "I have. It's an amazing opportunity. Director of User Experience for the entire healthcare division. Part of me still can't believe you'd offer something like that to someone who started as a consultant with no formal training. You've proven yourself 100 times over," Thomas said firmly. "Your designs have revolutionized our products. You've saved the company millions in development costs by getting things right the first time. And the nursing homes using our system report a 30% reduction in medication errors. If that doesn't qualify you for the position, I don't know what would." "It would mean giving up nursing," Denise said. "I'd be full-time in the corporate world." "True, but you'd be changing healthcare from the inside out. Your work would affect thousands of patients and healthcare workers, not just the ones at Sunset Pines." Before Denise could respond, the school doors burst open and children streamed out. Lily spotted the car and ran over, her backpack bouncing against her back. "Mom, Thomas." She climbed in, full of 8-year-old energy. "Did you do the big computer thing at your work today?" "We did," Denise confirmed, helping her with her seatbelt. "And everyone loved it. Cool." "Can we get ice cream to celebrate?" Thomas laughed. "I think that's a great idea." At the ice cream shop, Thomas watched Denise and Lily chatting about school projects and weekend plans. Over the past year, he had become a regular presence in their lives, attending Lily's school play, joining them for Sunday dinner with Denise's sister, even helping Lily build a science fair project. His own life had changed just as dramatically. He still ran Rivera Technologies, but with a new perspective. He had restructured the company to prioritize impact alongside profit, established a diversity initiative that went beyond token gestures, and started a foundation to support education in underserved communities. His wife, initially skeptical of his bus project as she called it, had eventually become one of Denise's biggest supporters. She had even started volunteering at Sunset Pines, reading to residents and helping with activity programs. "Earth to Thomas," Denise said, waving a hand in front of his face. "Where'd you go just now?" "Sorry," he smiled. "Just thinking about how much has changed in a year." "Speaking of change," Denise said, taking a deep breath, "I've made my decision about the job." Thomas leaned forward, trying not to look too eager. "I'm going to take it," she said, "but with one condition." "Name it." "I want to finish my nursing degree first. I'm only 1 semester away. I've come too far to stop now, even if I end up taking a different path." "Done." Thomas agreed immediately. "Take all the time you need." The position will be there when you're ready. Lily, who had been listening while pretending not to, looked up from her ice cream. Does this mean you won't have to work nights anymore? And we can have dinner together every day? That's exactly what it means, sweet pea, Denise said, stroking her daughter's hair. And it means Mommy can help more people have better care when they're sick. Like when I was in the hospital and Thomas brought us food. Just like that. Denise nodded, exchanging a warm glance with Thomas. Later, as Thomas's driver took them home, Denise gazed out the window at the city passing by. She thought about the bus route she had taken for so many years, the route where a chance encounter had changed everything. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't been on that bus that day? She asked Thomas. If your driver hadn't gotten sick? Thomas considered the question. I think about it sometimes. I'd probably still be the same person I was then, successful on paper, but missing something important. What was that? Lily asked, always curious. Perspective, Thomas replied thoughtfully. I had success but not meaning. I had employees but not friends. I built products but I didn't understand their real impact. Denise nodded, and I'd still be struggling to make ends meet, trying to finish my degree one class at a time, wondering if I'd ever get ahead. As they pulled up to Denise and Lily's apartment building, Thomas felt a familiar sense of gratitude. What had begun as a simple act of kindness, paying a stranger's bus fare, had evolved into something profound for both of them. We're still having the party at your house on Saturday, right? Denise asked as she and Lily got out. To celebrate the launch? Absolutely, Thomas confirmed. 3 o'clock. My wife's making her famous lemonade. We'll bring brownies, Lily declared, giving Thomas a quick hug before skipping toward their building. Denise lingered for a moment. Thank you, she said simply. Not just for today, but for seeing possibility where others might not have looked. Thank you for teaching me to see, Thomas replied. I'll see you Saturday. As his car pulled away, Thomas thought about the unlikely friendship that had grown between them. A CEO and a nursing aide. Two people from different worlds who might never have connected if not for a missing bus pass and a moment of kindness. Some might call it chance or coincidence. But Thomas preferred to think of it as something more meaningful, a reminder that behind every small act of kindness lies the potential for transformation, not just for the person receiving help, but for the giver as well. And that, he realized, was perhaps the most valuable lesson of all.